Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Today we'll be continuing our coverage of Star Wars Squadrons by breaking down all of the ships that you can fly and play with. So far we've taken a look at the X-Wing, the TIE Fighter, and U-Wing. Now we'll be moving on to the Galactic Empire support craft, the TIE Reaper. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the specs and the performance of the TIE Reaper, along with its combat history and developmental cycle. Also, we'll take a look at how the TIE Reaper will be featured in the game. Now, before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of this series. We've also made a playlist down in the description below that will have all the videos in this series on there, so check that out after this. Now, compared to a lot of the other ships on this list, there's just not that much information about the TIE Reaper. It was only introduced after Rogue One came out, so it's a relatively new ship in Star Wars lore. We do know, like all ships in the TIE series, that the Reaper is a product of Senior Fleet Systems. But unlike the Rebel Alliance, which only had the U-Wing for transport and dropship missions, the Empire seems to have multiple ships that fits that role, including the much more popular Lambda-class shuttle T-4A. The Lambda was used for everything, from transporting VIPs to squads of stormtroopers to die on the front. The TIE Reaper, however, has a drastically different and more aggressive design and was created for Special Forces use. It also seems to draw some design cues from the TIE SK-X-1 Experimental Air Superiority Fighter, otherwise known as the Striker, which we also get to see for the first time in Rogue One. Now, the first time we get to see the TIE Reaper in action is early on in the Empire's reign in 14 BBY. It was the personal transport for the Ninth Sister of the Inquisition. On a side note, she's probably too large to fit inside of a regular TIE Fighter cockpit, which was crammed even for a normal-sized human being. The Inquisitors were a paramilitary group independent of the Imperial military. They reported directly to the Emperor's enforcer, Darth Vader. They were tasked with hunting down Jedi survivors of Order 66. They were very few in number and considered amongst the most elite units in the Empire. They were also typically the type of individuals that would be assigned one of these TIE Reaper transports. Another unit that used the TIE Reaper was the Death Troopers, another elite group of soldiers that operated under Imperial intelligence. During the Battle of Scarif, the TIE Reaper was used to rapidly deploy Death Troopers to the front lines to counter the Rebel Raiders' assault. The TIE Reaper would continue to aid Special Forces activities for the Empire throughout the rest of the war. Unfortunately, because very few of these ships were made, only a few of them would survive by the time of the First Order versus Resistance conflict. The TIE Reaper was an extremely robust ship and one of the few fighters in the TIE line that actually was shielded and heavily armored. This was because the ship was attached to Special Forces missions and needed to be able to survive extremely heavy incoming ground fire when inserting or extracting troopers, especially when behind enemy lines. It also needed to survive attacks from giant flying mythical creatures, because Kashyyyk. Moral of the story is avoid Kashyyyk at all costs, and if you do go, avoid bringing small children or small dogs. The TIE Reaper shares the same type of wing structure as the in-atmosphere TIE Striker. This is actually a wing and not an S-foil designed to dissipate heat like what we find on the X-Wing. If we were to say put the TIE Reaper inside of a wind tunnel, I'm going to assume it's going to fare much better than the basic TIE fighters, which honestly would probably break apart in atmosphere were it not for the inertial compensators on board. The Reaper's wings are designed to create lift and make the ship much more capable in atmosphere, which again aids it in its most important mission, which is to land troops on the battlefield. The rear of the ship was quite large and able to carry far more cargo and troopers than the Rebel U-Wing. The assault ramp deploys in a forward position, which encourages troopers not to bunch up in the doorway. This is a slightly different philosophy from the Rebel Alliance U-Wing, which deploys troops from the sides of the ship. Another departure from the TIE line of starfighters is the TIE Reaper's cockpit, which is heavily armored and does not feature a massive large glass viewing port. The TIE Reaper is 24.2 meters long, which makes it just a tiny bit shorter than the U-Wing, but a bit more bulkier as well. For those of you who don't do metric, cause America, here's what it looks like next to an F-150. The TIE Reaper is powered by twin ion engines, which are upsized from the classic ones we find on the smaller TIE fighters. It also has a Class 1 hyperdrive, which is a rare inclusion for the TIE series, but also very necessary for special ops missions behind enemy lines. The TIE Reaper has an upgraded LS9.3 laser cannon, which packs much more of a punch than the standard LS1s found on the TIE in-space superiority fighter. This laser cannon was originally designed for the TIE Advance X1 and later incorporated into other models. In Star Wars Squadrons, the TIE Reaper will be using what now is just classified as the Senior Ion Cannon, which seems to be very similar to the type of weapon that the U-Wing will have. This most likely is just for balancing reasons. Giving the support class too powerful of a weapon might make it a very, very difficult ship to defeat. Now, like the TIE in-space superiority fighter, the TIE Reaper's wings also will feature solar panels, which will generate more energy for the engine. The cockpit has a 3-person seating arrangement and advanced targeting computers and a navigation system that can calculate hyperspace jumps. From what we can tell, the support class TIE Reaper is going to be similar to a lot of support classes in squad-based multiplayer games. The TIE Reaper will most likely be able to buff friendly ships and make life a lot harder for enemy ships. The ion cannons on board of the Reaper might not be able to do much damage, but they can potentially knock out an enemy starfighter's power system, making them a much easier target for your wingmates. So as a support class vessel, you can't just really venture off into the fray. If you are a TIE Reaper pilot, you're going to want to stay close to the other TIE fighters and TIE interceptors for supports, and also your ion cannons and your other abilities will make their lives a lot easier as well. A properly flown support ship will turn the tide of the battle against the enemy and also generate a lot of aggro. Luckily, the TIE Reaper is one of the toughest ships in the Imperial arsenal, and again, the only one with deflector shields in the game. So there you have it, guys. We might not know much about the TIE Reaper, but I definitely look forward to flying this ship. I think it's going to be a favorite for a lot of team-based kind of pilots, especially those who like to play medics or engineers or support class in other types of games. So it should be interesting to see how players will utilize this support class ship. Anyway, guys, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And again, that playlist with all of our ship breakdowns from Star Wars Squadrons will be in the description below. Well, guys, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.